patterns in our prompts can tap into powerful behavior within the large language model. It's trained on all of these different patterns, and it gets really good at using the patterns in our language in our prompt to decide what it's going to do. So one of the important things that we're going to learn about is the concept of a prompt pattern. A pattern for structuring the words and the statements in your prompt. So what is a prompt pattern? A prompt pattern is a way that we document a certain structure of phrases and statements in order to solve a particular problem with a large language model. So we'd like to interact with the large language model, and we'd like to solve a particular problem. And so a prompt pattern is basically a way of structuring our statements, a pattern for structuring our statements to use the large language model to solve that particular problem. So what would be an example of this? Well, let's imagine that we wanted to consistently generate the words, lamb, its fleece was as white as snow. Well, a pattern could be anytime you need lamb, its fleece was white as snow, you can write the statement, Mary had a little. You will very consistently get lamb, its fleece was as white as snow as the output. And so, for example, we can go and we can rerun this. Lamb, its fleece was as white as snow. We get more or less behavior. But if we want to consistently get those next words generated, we can do it over and over and over again through Mary had a little. It gives us some control over the output. It gives us a consistent, somewhat behavior. Now, it's not perfectly consistent. There's variations in the output. And we've seen in all of these examples, we've got variation in what happened, but we did get some consistency in the behavior. So what a prompt pattern is it's a way for us to document and talk about certain structures of our language, series of statements and wording that then will help us solve some particular problem. If the problem that we need to solve is we need to get lamb, its fleece as white as snow, as the next several words that are produced, then this is the pattern we use. Now, in many cases, we might have specific words we want. For example, we may want the large language model to tell us yes or no. We may want it to summarize something. We may want it to ask us questions. We may want it to always include certain things in its output. All of these things are problems that we might want to solve. We might want to know, how do we make sure it always includes these things in its output? How do we make sure that its output is always formatted a particular way? How do we try to make sure or get more consistent behavior on only getting a yes or a no? These are types of problems that you might want to solve by changing the pattern of our prompt, basically the structure of our prompt. Now, going back to our intuitive sort of understanding of prompts, you can see why thinking about it in terms of patterns is powerful, because patterns are basically that are in our prompt are tapping into things that the large language model has been trained on. It's been trained to predict the next word over and over, and it's learned certain patterns from the words. And if we can format our prompt in a way that taps into those patterns it's learned, we're more likely to get the behavior we want and solve that particular problem. So we document the pattern and the structure of our prompt in order to solve a particular problem that we need, or generate a particular behavior that we need for the large language model. So we're going to go through in a series of lectures throughout this course of specific prompt patterns that we can use within the context of large language models to solve important problems.